multi-millionaires that are crushing it in business, and they've got,
Is that not me?
Oh.
Growing up at school and things, I never really felt like where I fit in, do you know what I mean? I didn't really want to be gay, like it weren't really cool. I think even these days it's still not 100% easy to sort of come out, but I think the difference is now you don't always have to. So for me, I felt like I didn't really want to.
Were you just kind of pretending to be straight before that?
I think so, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had a girlfriend. I am a sort of typical entrepreneur. I'll sort of start something and then adapt, and move and keep changing, do you know what I mean, to stay relevant. So Dickie Bow actually started as menswear. We're now a salon. I can remember it was big in sort of Newcastle. I was living up there after university, and I'd see people out in my t-shirts, and I'd like walk up to them and say, "Oh my god, I've made that t-shirt in my living room." Do you know what I mean?
When you did these businesses, was everything pretty much just you on your own?
Everything on my own. I asked my parents, and they were like, "Don't do it." And I just thought, I cannot bear that life. Enjoy life, have a go at things. We're not taught that in school, so it's almost like you've got to go out there and teach yourself and see other people doing it to trigger that. Ooh, that's a really great question. I'm struggling there. Let me have a think. So,
Karl.
hello.
Welcome. I think, for me, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to speak to you is I think often we can get on shows like this, like the multi-millionaires that are crushing it in business, and they've got,
Is that not me?
Oh. Oh, good. I don't know, is it? Is there something you're not telling me? You've got millions.
Secret millionaire.
Secret millionaire. That's what we're actually
I
on.
know what you mean.
But I think there's just people that sometimes are too far removed for people to really relate to. And actually, I'm interested in the reality of what it takes to build a genuine business and a sustainable business, because we all know a lot of businesses fail, and it takes a lot of grit, determination, and right. So I think this is going to be a really insightful chat. I think before we delve into business, entrepreneurship, and all that really good stuff, take me back to your younger years. I want to know, Karl growing up, if you was to kind of look at what are the key things that have made you who you are today and maybe led you down the path of entrepreneurship? What would you say?
I think for me, growing up at school and things, I never really felt like where I fit in. Do you know what I mean? Especially, obviously, being a gay guy at school. Back when I was at school, I feel like I know you didn't really have anyone to relate to. So it was early 2000s. It was still a bit of a struggle coming out. I think even in my head, I felt like I didn't really want to be gay, like it weren't really cool, do you know what I mean? So, or accepted, I say cool, accepted.
But
so,
as a kid, as a teenager, you want to be, or most of us, we want to be the cool one.
Trying to sort of fit in with the popular cool kids, the cool guys, the cool girls. And I think I were a little bit of a chameleon, and that probably taught me a bit more about today. I do sort of try and, when I meet people, fit in, and which is a good thing, I think, because I can sort of adapt to anyone. But yeah, I think that taught me a lot. From my later years, but
what was that like? Because obviously I think it's easy to forget how far we've come in society in terms of acceptance.
It's crazy.
For you back then, I mean, I don't know, when did you first start realising you were gay, and what was that kind of like on that landscape?
So I mean, I think even these days it's still not 100% easy to sort of come out, but I think the difference is now you don't always have to. So for me, I felt like I didn't really want to. Does that make sense? So I sort of I would say hid from it and ran away from it, really. So for me, when I went up to university, I sort of got out of the town, got out of that sort of small town mentality, and then that's when I sort of could explore my sexuality and sort of really come out, do you know what I mean? But it was very secret and very hidden still.
Were you just kind of pretending to be straight before that?
I think so, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had a girlfriend, I had a girlfriend for a little while. I tried, do you know what I mean? It was almost like you had to try to fit in, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, which is a bit sad, really. A bit sad. It was all a very difficult time for me. I felt very anxious around the time of obviously coming out. I felt like I had to get drunk to sort of address it, you know what I mean? I can remember that's how I came out. I got really, really drunk. I was really upset, oh my god. So yeah, it was a very strange time. I feel like I didn't really do all that thinking until I got up to sort of university. So I was sort of 21-year-old. So yeah, I feel like now things seem to be a little bit sort of easier in terms of the way the world is, the media, you know, where people are now a bit more accepting and stuff. I think it was still a bit sort of, even when I did come out, we were a bit like, oh really, like it was never a positive thing for me. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. So even like now, I feel like I don't really address my sexuality much because of how the whole process was for me. So there's probably still like a few things I need to even delve into really. But I do accept
we've got
myself.
time today, Carl. Let's go. This is going to be therapy for you. Let's do
Lots
it.
to chat about. Yeah.
I mean, from a mental health standpoint,
Yeah.
because obviously a lot of this podcast is around mindset and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, what have you learned over the years to sort of manage that anxiety or that fear of fitting in and work on your mental health?
I think I sort of utilise my positives, so like that's probably why I'm so focused on things and doing well and watching others thrive, because I think for me that's probably, you know, the better part of life and what I, you know what I mean, that's probably what I've taught myself. So I think mental health wise, always just focus on the positives and what's good in your life. Obviously now I don't see it as a bad thing, but I think it taught me how to bring out the best in yourself and those around you. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that starts with acceptance, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't be the best you if you're denying parts of who you are.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Because you're never going to be 100% you.
Yeah.
I also think it's not selfish to take self-care seriously and like having routines, whether that be going to the gym, exercising, like going on a run, nutrition, sleep. Is there anything like that that's really important to you?
Well, yeah, obviously keeping fit and healthy. I think you know, it's a massive difference when you're eating well and training. You know what I mean, for your fitness and your mind. I think that's huge. But for me, going back to what we were saying before, I feel like going up to university and being able to explore and have a bit of an adventure, whether that's travelling or sort of finding yourself. That's where I sort of found me really.
Tell me about Dickey Bow Boutique and like this journey of becoming a business owner. Where did that come from?
So exciting. So it's such a random story, you know, not a lot of people know this, which is really interesting, but I am a sort of typical entrepreneur. I'll sort of start something and then adapt, you know, and move and keep changing, do you know what I mean, to stay relevant and to stay busy really.
Which is an important skill, right? Is not getting stuck in your ways, always innovating, seeing the next opportunity, right?
So get this, so it started as a men's t-shirt brand. So originally I were very sort of creative and arty, and then went to art college at Leeds. I was sort of on the graphic design path really, so I went to university, I did my business degree. And then
what was that like? Because I always think business degrees, often you're getting taught by somebody on business who hasn't got their own business because they're a teacher.
Very textbook sort of heavy, you know
was
what I mean?
Was it good? Did you get good stuff out of it? What's your
the best
experience?
thing about university for me was social skills, getting yourself out there, meeting new people, finding where you fit in life. That's where I really found where I fit after sort of school and things. Finding your people, do you know what I mean? So for me, that was the best thing about it.
Right, okay.
So you're meeting people from all walks of life, doing all sorts of different subjects. You know, in a different town, obviously, if you do move away. So for me, that was the best thing, probably social skills.
And did you go there because you were already in the mindset, I want to be a business owner? Like, is that why you picked that?
Growing up, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. He was a steel erector, and then he ended up with a crane company.
Right. Okay.
So for me, I sort of always seen my dad working for my granddad, and my mum, she was a hairdresser, mobile hairdresser. So we always went around with her as kids, you know what I mean? So we'd be there, she'd pick us up from school, we'd be sat in Jane's house having an hair done, do you know what I mean? So they were always working.
Did you know my mum's a mobile hairdresser?
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
And we had that same thing of like, I'd get picked up from
Always
school, and
working
sometimes
hard
I'd have to go around her customers.
Clients,
and sit there.
Yeah.
But I think that teaches you see that work ethic, don't you? Is that what you got from it?
100%, yeah. I think that was sort of built into me from being young really, that my dad was always away working, and even when he were away we were doing the rounds with my mum, hairdressing, do you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely that's where I've probably gained my worth ethic.
And then when it came to actually having your own business, why did you want to do that?
I always wanted to, so I always used to think, what can I do? Like, what is it that I'm wanting to do? And I can remember feeling very sort of lost. I think I went to university really to find myself and to see what I enjoyed. I ended up falling into business because a girl that I went to art college with, her partner did marketing, and it seemed sort of still quite creative. So I thought, if I team that with business, and sort of see how I get on really, and I did find that I enjoyed it. So So yeah, that's what I did with university. And that led me on then to I did a couple of jobs after uni, and I worked in natural. Sorry, I'm veering off here, but I worked in natural health for a little bit. For a lady who had her own natural health company, and she taught me everything from the ground up, so product development, how to sell, sales, marketing, everything, and I really gained a lot of experience from that job. I did that for about 2 years. We're about 23-year-old, so I'd say that it's a lady called Diane. She was my mentor, really, and she could anything that she could sell or put her mind to, she'd do. Do you know what I mean? And that really inspired me. And she always taught me as well, like, you can really, it's how you market something. So you might have something that's already out there.
Yeah.
But if you obviously market it well, package it well, if your branding's bang on, you can sell anything. Do you know what I mean? Sell Santa the Arabs, literally.
Yeah. Well, that's what they always say, isn't it? Like, you can have the best product ever, but if you don't know how to market it well, it doesn't matter. And equally, some people have the worst product ever, but they're great at marketing.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are going to get the clients.
You can literally sell, and obviously for me, I like to believe in the product. It needs to be authentic, to sell it. But I do think if you've got an idea and you market it and package it well, and your branding's great.
So you started off with a men's clothing company initially. Was that the first business idea?
Yeah. So from leaving the natural health industry, I thought, what can I do? What skills can I? What's my skill set? What can I offer? And I thought, right, okay, so I'm great at graphic design. I'm into fashion, and I knew the sort of fundamentals of running a business. So I went off, and I was quite good, obviously, from that job as well. I learned sort of online marketing, how to run a website, stuff like that. So I set myself a little Shopify website up, bought some T-shirts in, bought a screen printer online, and away I went.
And literally did it by hand yourself?
Printing T-shirts, yeah. Wow. So Dickie Bow actually started as menswear,
right,
which is crazy. So that shows you how much it's adapted.
Wow.
We're now a salon. So what happened there was I managed to get it out there quite well. I can remember it was big in sort of Newcastle. I was living up there after university, and I'd see people out in my T-shirts, and I'd like walk up to them and say, "Oh my God, I've made that T-shirt in my living room." Do you know what I mean?
Wow,
so,
that must have felt so good. That an idea
amazing.
that
that's what got me fired up, really, for to do something big and successful. Because obviously it felt so good that someone bought your T-shirt. They didn't know who you were. They just liked your product, and then from there, that's where I sort of started sending products out to influencers, but this, oh my God, this is like 10 years ago now.
What gave you that idea? Like, to say, okay, if I want to go out bigger, I need to get bigger people involved. Where did that come from?
I think it was like the days before, sort of even influencers exist, really. Instagram had just sort of hit, gone live. And I thought, people in TV were sort of just starting to join. So I thought, why not send my products out to these guys that, they've just started Instagram, popular on TV. People like, remember Joe McElderry?
Yep.
On X Factor.
He's been on the show, actually.
Has he really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Nice guy, Joe. I messaged him on Instagram, and I was just like, can I send you some T-shirts? I mean, at the time, I think now it's a bit more saturated, but at the time it was, I think, good to receive, some clothing and, something new and exciting.
It's a big thing about
it worked for me.
Business, innit? It's timing. Like you say, now it's something, maybe some of the influencers are like, oh, we've had 1,000 different teeth whitening products and da-da-da, but
it's very hard
if you can get in at the right time and it's something different, it makes a big difference, right?
I feel like it was for me, and that helped me build my personal brand a little bit as well, because obviously we'd get tagged and shared. And then people like Diversity, can you remember Diversity, the Britain's Got Talent group? I sent them some T-shirts because they were like Darlington based, I think, and I were in Newcastle. I think I drove them down to them, and they loved them, and they were like, "Oh, can you bring us some more?" And that were really great, And then obviously we get sales off the back of them, posted online. It were very direct sales to what people posted back then. I think now it's very difficult because people obviously, everything's very diluted. But that were a great start for my first business.
So at what point did it transition into the Dickie Bow that we've got today then? Because it's so different, as you say, it's now a salon.
Yeah, it's crazy how things have changed. But I think, so what happened then is I was focusing too heavily on sort of having products made out of factories and going bigger, really. So rather than focusing on getting new products out, I was looking at sort of, you know, having products made abroad and trying to find a factory. And for me, that took too much time, and I sort of flatlined a little bit, and I got a bit bored. I can remember at one point I just got a bit fed up of doing the same thing every day, picking and packing and going to the post office, and I thought there's got to be more to life than this, you know what I mean? So I ended up going back into work at that point. I went to work for a company.
How did that feel as somebody that's an entrepreneur?
Really hard work, very hard work, but I don't know, I felt like I needed just a bit of a change, you know what I mean?
What did you do?
So I was selling e-cigarettes when they first ever came out. For a brand called, we were originally called SkySig. It's now Blue. They're in they're quite a big brand now. So I went to work for them, for quite a big company, doing sales and marketing. And I'd be like knocking on doors, you know, to get this product in. And it was very difficult because at the time e-cigarettes were like very sort of, oh no, it's a very new thing. Everyone was still smoking at that point. You remember? So
we're making us sound old now.
I know, that's crazy.
You can't believe how quick.
It's about 12 years ago.
Is it?
Yeah.
But just things move on so quick, don't they? And
well, now everyone's vaping now, aren't they? Everyone's literally addicted to vaping.
Literally everyone, everywhere you look.
So it'd be an easy sell now. But back then it was like, literally, I was like, can I give you these products? And I found it a very hard sell, basically.
Yeah.
So that weren't for me. So I had a little vision. I said, right, 12 months, going to save up again. I owned my car, and I thought, right, sell my car, save up for the next 12 months, and then we're going to go again. Do you know what I mean? So I had 12 months to sort of think and plan.
When you did these businesses, was everything pretty much just you on your own?
Everything on my own.
Like, who was your support? Who was encouraging you? Bouncing ideas off you?
I never had that. I was always told, even after this job that I had for working for the e-cigarette company, you know, my parents said, you know, stay safe, don't take risks. You know, they were very sort of safe. And I can remember at the time I said, no, I've got a plan, I've got a vision, I'm wanting to open a boutique now. And I thought, what am I going to really enjoy now for the next sort of few years, and what can I push? And at the time, sort of fast fashion were booming, you know, like I don't even think Miss Guided existed at this point. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to go and buy lots of, you know, ready-made, easy sell ladies' clothing, team it with like at the time as well, Cheryl Cole had this big hair, and so hair pieces, these cheap synthetic hair pieces that were like 30 quid. I thought, surely I could make this sort of mini department store, you know, and do makeup, hair pieces and dresses, you know, like ready, you know, like a going out sort of one-stop shop, makeup shop, do you know what I mean? So I went off to Wakefield to look for a base, and I went into the Riding shopping centre and asked, you know, for the prices, basically. Obviously, it was very expensive for me at the time, but I just thought, do you know what? If I sell my car off, I've got my savings from working, you know, for the e-cigarette company, I can make a go of this, you know. Obviously, I asked my parents, and they were like, don't do it, you know, keep your company car, you get your holiday pay. And I just thought, I cannot bear that life, like the 9 to 5 sort of.
And was that what was driving you, or was it, because what I'm hearing is a certain level of self-belief, like you're willing to sell your car, nobody around you's telling you it's a good idea, but you are still going to do it anyway. What was that? Was that just confidence in your ability, or
I don't even know where it comes from, but I just think if anyone puts their mind to anything, you can 100% achieve anything, you know what I mean? I'm a big believer in self-belief. And
did you always have it?
Do you know what? Yeah, I always sort of knew where I wanted to go, and what's really interesting is, even looking back now, just reminding myself there, is I think from a young age I could see my path and where I was going, and I feel like I have got there. Does that make sense?
But do you think that's important? The reason you got there is because you had a vision.
I've still got a vision now of where I want to be. Obviously, I'm nowhere near it, but I know I will get there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I feel like everything you do in life is a stepping stone to where you want to be.
And I think that's important. I think for anybody listening, you know, if you are feeling a bit lost, or you lack in that confidence and self-belief that you're talking about, Karl, I think start with getting clarity on the vision.
Yeah.
Because if you can start to align, what are the things I'm passionate about? Where would I like to go? What's the life I want to lead? And get more clarity. I think that's the starting point.
Yeah.
Then you can start to take actions all in alignment with that vision.
Yeah.
That's where confidence can start to grow over time, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about a couple of things that I've done, so we haven't touched this yet, but I ended up working with reality TV stars, doing their hair and makeup on TV, you know, and even being filmed for the shows doing this. But I knew as a kid that I would end up working doing that. Yeah,
it was always.
And when I got there, I was like, I can't believe I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, how the hell have I got here? Yeah. But I think just having vision and working towards that goal.
How did you do it? So if anybody's like maybe quite new in business and they've heard what you said there about, you know, one of the best ways of marketing is to get influencers on board and then obviously break through into television and stuff. What was the route? What's the advice you'd give?
100% network. You need a great network of people around you. Get yourself out there. So go
where? What would you say to people?
Big events, anywhere, you know, meeting people with other businesses, clients, you know, chatting to clients. Yeah. You know, I think even being just a friendly, good person and chatting and getting yourself out there can open doors. Like, you never know, you might meet who, do you know what I mean? And essentially that's what happened for me. So going back to Dickey Bow Boutique, so I sort of got going and I opened my first boutique and everyone were like really shocked because it looked amazing, you know. And again, that goes back to branding and how you market yourself. Yeah. But I sort of made it look like the best place in the area and everyone were like buzzing over it. And again, going back to sort of your network and how you get there, I moved back to Wakefields because I knew I had a stronger network of people to help me get the business going. Yeah. Rather than being up in Newcastle where a lot of my friends had left at that point. You know, I thought if I open this business here, it's going to be slower. Yeah. So I went back to where my network was from being young, and it sort of just boomed really. I can remember the first day we did really well. Like, there was no stock on the shelves. Like, we're like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to get back to the wholesalers tomorrow, you know, to buy fresh stock. Wow. So we're all very exciting. I was on my own as well at this point. I didn't have any staff. I think my mum was helping me. She couldn't even use the iPad. Brilliant. She was like, you know what I mean? Just classic hairdresser. Like, she was like, oh, what do we do this? So that's how we got going. And then how I got where I sort of ended where I am now is massively networking. I thought to myself, how can I get this business to be a success, you know, to be big? And I thought, I need to put myself at the forefront of it. So that when I first started, I had sort of girls working for us doing makeup and hair, and they'd sort of come in and sort of take the limelight and take a lot of the clients, and I'd have to damage control and start again, you know, when the clients went. So I thought I need to be doing this myself, you know, and get myself well known so that if people do leave in the salon industry, you find that obviously people are very skilled and they can leave at any time, and that makes you go back to square one sort of thing. So I did that, and that's, you know, when I started networking, I'd turn up to events, Pink Gorilla, you know, in Leeds. I can remember going to one event there. I didn't know anyone in the room. Now I feel like I know everyone there. You know what I mean? It's great. I've got lots of friends there.
Real courage, doesn't it? I think a lot of people would find that really intimidating.
I'm very nervous, but I do think that's big advice: is get yourself out there, even if you're feeling a little bit nervous. You know, someone always comes up to you and has a chat. No one likes to see someone stood on their own. You know what I mean? Especially as you get a bit older. Turn up, show up, and I feel like that's how, you know, you open doors for yourself, really.
You mentioned there quite a bit about your experience, you know, obviously getting the business degree and learning about marketing. So again, for any listener that's in business and maybe they're just not getting the clients, the customers, the sales that they want, when you approach any kind of project and you go, right, let's look at how best to market this, what would be like the go-to tips of like what you say you focus on to market?
Okay, so the only time I would ever say look at what's around you is when you're first starting. So for me, I like to focus on myself after that point. Yeah.
So get a bit of market research.
Look at the competition. See what's out there, and you want to be, you know, with the top people in your industry. You know what I mean, or above. Really, you want to be the best. Okay. So how you look, you know, your branding is a big thing for me. That's been great over the years. You sort of make yourself look professional, you know, high end, and that's down to sort of having the right marketing, the right the right look, you know, and how all your social media looks, your infographics.
Where do you get that from? Are you just naturally quite creative and you just know what looks right, or do you get advice?
Again, from networking. So like, over the years, I've met graphic designers who've become friends, and I use a team now for my business who I met at university who are just great, very skilled graphic designers, and I do a lot of the marketing myself, but in terms of design and stuff like that, I have people who are good at what they do it, so it looks the best. You know what I mean? And
it's kind of like, first thing is do your research, see what the competition is, and then decide where you want to be placed. And obviously, as you said, go for let's be the best we can be in this industry. Yeah. Then it's about, from that point, going, right, we need the branding rights, we need to build the right team around us that can help make the vision happen.
Yeah,
right?
and you've got to outsource as well. Like, you can't do everything yourself. So for me, like, those little things like how we looked, the graphic design work, really leveled me up and makes you look professional rather than sloppy. If you do things like that yourself and you're not quite there, I see a lot of businesses, even that have got high-end products, doing their own marketing and advertising, and I think, well, that it's such a shame if you've got someone who's good at that in.
When you're starting out in business, and a lot of people that are self-employed and so on, I know it can be hard, A, to trust other people, but B, to part with your hard-earned cash if cash flow's low.
It's so
but
worth
I
it.
always say, as soon as you can, whenever you can, invest.
You've got to invest to make more. You know what I mean? Ultimately, you can save on certain areas if you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
But you've got to make things look good. It's got to appeal to people, and that's that's in your marketing, definitely.
And then, is there anything else in your strategy that you think is good advice in terms of how? Because it's all good. It could look good, but then how do you get it out en masse?
Collaborating.
Right.
So in my industry, in the beauty industry especially, I feel like there's a lot of competition.
Okay.
It's quite a bitchy sort of industry, really. That's the one thing I haven't enjoyed. I'm very collaborative. I love to see other people succeed. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think people can't understand that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
it's I'm like that dog eat dog.
Yeah. But I'd rather work with people than against them. And I feel like when you're at the top, people are collaborating, and those at the bottom, it's usually because they're being competitive. Do you know what I mean? So sort of pushing themselves away from other people almost. You know what I mean? But that could become sort of obvious, and you're always better off collaborating.
Well, you said there about it can be quite bitchy and it can be quite a hard industry maybe. When you reflect now over the many years you've had with your various businesses, what would you say have been some of the hardest times in businesses, if you was to look back and think, gosh, that was a really challenging time for us?
Challenging times in business, God, there's been lots. I think staffing's always an issue, because I think sometimes you can think people are your friends and they think that they're trying to help you, but sometimes, not always. I've had some great staff, great team members, and essentially that's helped me get where I am, and I really appreciate that. But I think staffing's an issue, and having the right people around you. So I think sometimes when you don't necessarily recognise it, I feel like I've got the tools now to sort of recognise that. But back in the early days when people were a little bit sort of toxic, a little bit poisonous, that sort of does rub off on you. So I think having the right people around you is massive. That's always been a little bit of a challenge, and sort of balancing, the right level of sort of how friendly you are with people, and how much you show people. I think sometimes getting that balance is difficult, because you want to be friendly, and that's me. I love being friends with people, but also people take the piss when when you give too much. You know what I mean? Or you too? You know what I mean? You've got to have that barrier. You've got to have that barrier really with your team.
When you reflect, is there any key mistakes you made in business that taught you a lot? When you look back, you think it might have been a horrible mistake or failure, but actually you needed that to grow.
Being too soft. I always say, like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I quite like that about myself. Very real, I sort of say everything that I'm thinking, but sometimes you have got to hold back a little bit. I think that for me that's been a little bit detrimental, because I've been so open. So I think sometimes keep a little bit back for yourself.
What about as well the practical hours you put in and the days you work? If you think back to some of the early days of building, can you just go back there and say what was the reality? Because I think the reason I want to delve into this is there's something I speak a lot about. There's no goal that is more important than your health, your mental health, and so on. However, at the same time, to be in a place where you can, you see online people talk about these 5-hour morning routines and all these gurus about breath work and cold water therapy. To be able to do all that, you kind of need some foundation set where you've got the money so that you can have that free time to then look after your health.
Yeah.
And in order to get to a place where you've got the foundation set, sometimes you can't be doing fucking cold water therapy and sleeping 8 hours a day. Sometimes you've got to put in the fucking graft in your younger years. Talk to us about that side.
I do feel. I mean, I'm going for a bit of a process at the moment where I'm starting again. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm actually sold the salon now.
Yeah.
So I'm starting again. I'm looking for new opportunities, new ideas, and I feel like I'm going to have to get back into that mindset again, starting again.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of waking up early. Focusing all day on the business. I feel like in a way you kind of lose sight of yourself in a way, but obviously as long as you've got your view on your goal, you sort of work towards it and get there. But yeah, I think long hours. I mean, I would answer as soon as I had an Instagram or Facebook message from a client booking in or coming up to the shop, to the salon. I'd be straight on it. Now I'm so chilled out. Like obviously I've got the team to check or whatever, but I don't even really check every other day now. But yeah, I can remember just being so involved in it and so lived, breathed. I was it. If you cut me in half, it would have said Dickey Bow Boutique at one point. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that's necessary? Do you think you could have built it another way, or do you think in the early days that has to be the way?
I think you've got to be consumed by it. I think you've got to be, because you lose interest if not. I've seen so many businesses come and go over the years, open and close. And they start, and I always say to them, just keep going. You've got to get past the 12-month, 2-year part for it to, to be a success. Like
sometimes longer for some.
Yeah, you've almost got to fake it till you make it. Like my first 12 months were difficult. You're always invested in new products in the business itself and putting yourself last. I think that's why people get a bit fed up. So yeah, I think. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I think if you're working smart as well as hard combined, it's gonna get to a point where it pays off, and that's when you can give back to yourself again, right?
Yeah. It took a lot of years for that. Only until I'd say like the last 4 years, maybe coming up to 30 years old, did I start to sort of reap the rewards. And doing a lot of free work, a lot of getting yourself out there initially. Obviously not anymore so much, but I still think you should do things, out. Even now, like there's things that I've done for free. I've done hair for people who've got multi-million-pound businesses, in fact billionaires, and I've done this little quick hairdo, and I've thought, God, I can't charge them for that. And I've gone, no, it's fine, don't worry. And that has now come back to pay off. I've seen someone recently and in this important meeting, and she's come over and said, wow, lovely to see you. I really like you. I've got some great opportunities coming up, and I've been with people who meeting about an opportunity, and it's been that's really paid off tenfold. So I think that probably comes down to a bit of integrity and not being greedy, I think. But yeah, that's, you get paid in other ways, not necessarily financially. But yeah, I think things always come through. I think it's like the universe and karma, really.
And I think it's good to hear you say in there that it was hard and it's taken a long time to see the payoffs, but that it's. I mean, I'm the same. My first business, I was 19 when I started my entertainment company, and just for years and years and years, any profit we made just got reinvested. And there's times where you're working 7 days a week, 16-hour days, and you think, gosh, like, is it going to turn around? And it does.
Yeah.
It does.
So it's all that hard work. And I think that's why people don't last, because they think, I can't carry on like this for no financial reward, or it's not instant, or it's not,
they need that
it's not coming overnight.
Yeah.
But I think it's a long game. It might take years to come back, but when it does, it really pays off.
Let's talk about the other side, though, the consequence of that, because you've spoken there about being quite alone. You've spoken there about even like family members not supporting it. You've spoken about long hours, long days. What sort of some of the consequences that's taken mentally on you, and how did you cope with some of that?
I think sometimes at some points I've been very lonely, especially with like personal relationships and things like that, because I put work first always. So I mentioned before there about answering messages straight away. I was so hyper-focused on these little things of getting the business going that I lost sight of probably what were reported at the time around me. Like now, obviously, I look back and I think, well, actually, that's probably the reason why that didn't work, and I was focusing on my business for the right reasons. But I do think you can get lost, and, mentally that can affect you. But then at the same time, it all boils down to what you enjoy and what's important at the time. Do you know what I mean?
What you want.
And at the time for me, I did get enjoyment out of running the business. But it can be lonely. It can be very lonely. And I think that there's times where you think, is it worth it? Do you know what I mean? And you do go through those low points. But
When you look back with the wisdom you've got now,
Yeah.
if you was yourself starting out again,
Yeah.
what would the advice be? What would you do better? What would you do differently?
I think having more balance. So for me, I was just 100 mile an hour with one thing, you know, with the business. I think having a bit more balance, a bit more time for other people, you know, and yourself. You know, I never really took any time out. For me, in a way, you've lost a lot of time there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think having more time for yourself, switching off. You know, I never switched off. I'd always be looking at your phone, and that impacts your mental health. You
Massively.
know, of course it does. Yeah, even now I think God, my concentration is not as good because I've always been like,
I'm
you know,
exactly
looking
the
at.
same.
No, it's terrible.
And I also think, like, as I reflect, you think, gosh, you'll never get your 20s back. And on one hand, I absolutely don't regret building a business.
Same.
But
I
I
feel the
also
same.
think if it took me a bit longer to have the success,
If you had a bit more freedom,
and I could have enjoyed the process a bit more and
could have
had more
travelled
balance,
more and
right?
seen the world more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me now, looking back like that, yeah, I could have been a bit freer and enjoyed my 20s more because things do get a bit more serious as you get older. But I don't regret it. I feel like I learnt a lot, and I did gain a lot from that for now and for my 30s. You know what I mean? So.
Talk to me about now,
Yeah.
because you've just said there, obviously, business sold. It's an exciting,
Very
huge
exciting.
life change for you.
Yeah.
Where are we? What's the goals? What does the future have in hold?
Yeah, so it's been a long process selling my business. When I decided to sell about 9 months ago, I thought, right, okay, I need a plan here. So it's taken like 6 months to get it through. Really happy with the way it's gone, who the business has gone to. I'm just ready for the next step, man. You know what I mean?
Do you want to talk a little bit about why you made that decision? Because there might be business owners now that are not sure what their next step is.
Yeah, I sort of, like, obviously I'm in my 20s, I envisioned having, 30 salons and, well, maybe not 30, but more 10, 20 salons.
Yeah, like an empire.
Yeah, and I think for me, I learned with the industry that I chose to build, it was based on highly skilled staff with a high, the industry I'm in, it's a high staff turnover because essentially people come, they learn from you, they take what they can and then they move on, or they start their own business. It's very easily replicated.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that I've had, really.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I sort of quickly realised I'm not going to have more than I had 2 salons at one point up until last year, and that were difficult to manage. If you lose with staff member, you've got to really spend a lot of time and effort building that back up. So you can imagine if you lost all your staff or whatever. Thankfully, I was very lucky and I had a great team. But yeah, I realised it weren't buildable and scalable. You know what I mean? Especially on my own. So for me, I thought, right, okay, I'm ready for something.
I think just one thing to add, Carl, is like, it might have been scalable, but I think it's that recognising what it's going to take to get there isn't necessarily the journey I want to go on, and that's okay. Because other entrepreneurs, like your Grant Cardones, will be like 10x everything, go bigger. It's like that might work for a small percent of people, but it's okay to stay smaller and do other stuff and change your mind.
You see, I realised I need to sort of pull back, have a rethink, and go into something different to get bigger. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I sort of decided to move on. Really, everything were great. I feel like I got to the top in my area. And then for me, that were the time to move on and do something new. So that's when I decided to sell the business then.
What's the next chapter?
So next chapter, again, so due to sort of having that experience and knowing about the industry I've been in, I'm looking for something now to go bigger, so scalable products online. I'd like to work from anywhere. I felt very tired having a salon. You can't have, when you go on holiday, you're still worrying about staffing. You can't go for longer than a week. You're like, oh. So managing the ship, do you know what I mean?
I think that's an important thing for anyone listening to really establish. When we talk about entrepreneurship, I don't think there's like this one blueprint for this is what an entrepreneur should be. I think you've got your kind of more, let's call it the traditional entrepreneur, and that is someone who likes to build and scale and sell businesses and maybe build empires, be those empire builders.
Yeah.
But there is also something that I think is more and more common, which is what I kind of refer to as more of a lifestyle entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
And this is someone who maybe likes to
wants to enjoy life,
follow
but
their
also
passions
do well
and work their businesses into their lifestyle, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think to be the other version of an entrepreneur, you have to your biggest passion has to be building businesses. Yeah. It can't be, actually, I quite like having switch off time and I like to do other stuff and have a social life. I think your social life has to be a business if you're going to make that a success.
And I think that's what I pretty much did, really, and that's what I enjoy. You know, that's what I get enjoyment out of. So yeah, for me, it was about building the network of people who are all sort of like-minded, wanting to do well in life, enjoy seeing others thrive. So going from there, then that's when you sort of think about what you wanted to do in the future. You know what I mean? So now it's nice to sort of feel like I can, take a step back, look at what I've learned, look at what my skill set is, and what I want to do next. You know, I never thought I'd get to this position, so it's good to be here at the moment. Got a few ideas, obviously.
Yeah, we spoke about a few. It's
a few ideas
stuff.
coming, yeah.
And I think it is great. And I think sometimes in life, and I reflect on it, I think a great way to illustrate this for me is when I did the bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in life you can only realise, like for example, for the first time in my life now, because I did the bodybuilding, which was very extreme and very hard, it's like I now don't need abs all year round, and I'm not chasing that goal. Why? Because I did it to the extreme and realised that doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
And I think it's a similar thing with you. I think you've done the whole working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. You've had staff. You've built all that.
I do
you
want
will
the
have
balance
learned
now.
so much, right?
Yeah,
but now you've got a new perspective.
Yeah. And I think that I've learned that, and that's what I'm going to try and sort of tie in. But even with, I've not told you this yet, but I've been offered a role working with a big leisure and hospitality company who've been in the industry like 20 years in Leeds, and I'm even going to work with them for a little bit, so I'm quite excited about that. Some people might see that entrepreneurs as taking a step back, but actually I'm excited to sort of utilise and use the skills that I have learned and actually learn some more from other people, because I've been on my own for 10 years working. So it'd be nice to be around others, and soaking all their sort of knowledge. So I'm going to do that for a few months, as well as obviously try and get my definitely get my business up and running, which might take sort of 6 months to source my products, get it all marketed, get all the packaging sorted, and from there we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll be thriving.
I'm genuinely excited for you, and I getting to know you over the last few years, I think you're just so passionate about what you do. You've got such a wealth of knowledge and experience now, which I truly believe is meaning you've set the foundations to whatever you put your mind to. You can make it a success.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I often struggle to articulate what I'm trying to say. So,
well, you've done bloody well today.
Thank you.
Final few questions just before we finish. I like to do some sort of generalised questions that I ask all guests, just around life and sort of business and that kind of stuff. So the first question is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received, and why?
Best piece of advice I've ever received. I think about taking risks and not don't worry, never worry. Like what's the worst that could happen? I think that's great advice. Yeah. Even if you fall flat with that idea, there's always something else you can do. Yeah. Obviously, people have different levels of entry into whatever they're doing, or if they've had more sort of overheads or more risk, but essentially I think you take life by the horns and give everything a go. That's probably the best advice I've received over years.
On the flip side, what's some of the worst advice you've heard, and why?
Don't take risks. Stay in your job. Stay safe. Like, that's what we're taught at schools. We're taught to stay safe. They don't teach you about money. They don't teach you that they want everybody to just essentially work within a company, sit there, do your job,
pay your taxes
for the next 40 years. Which, how boring is that? Like, get yourself out there, like, enjoy life, have a go at things. I mean, we're not taught that in school, so it's almost like you've got to go out there and teach yourself and see other people doing it to trigger that. So obviously,
I agree.
Podcasts and things like that.
That's exactly what this whole podcast is about. It's about trying
inspiring
to
others to do it.
On that.
Yeah. So see things, be inspired. Don't sit back and wait. Life's for living.
Based on that, then, this is kind of like the lessons from life question. As I say, this is the Success School podcast, and the idea is that a lot of traditional education isn't genuinely kind of equipping us to be successful in life, whether that be mental health, whether that be physical fitness, or whether that be financial health. We're not really taught that stuff in depth at school. So aside from what you've learned in school, and instead what you've learned through life, if you was like many years from now on your deathbed and you was looking back and you could just give 3 pieces of advice that if somebody followed these, you believe they'd live a happy, healthy, fulfilled, successful life.
Be kind, give to people, give love, receive love, You know, a lot of people have the walls up. You know, feel love and warmth. You know, and look for purpose. Like at the moment, I'm looking for purpose. Like, yes, I've done the successful local business, but I'm looking for now something that's authentic and you know, something that's positive, so it impacts people in a good way. Their mental health. Look after people. You know, like it's nice to see other people do well and feel good. And I think that for me is how you know, how you become successful in the end, you know, because you've helped people. People remember your personality and what you've done for them, you know. So yeah, I'd say those things really.
Nice.
Yeah.
Karl, if people are just discovering you for the first time, they want to see some of your content, follow you, watch your story, what's the best places they can find you and follow you on socials?
Instagram. I'm trying to get a TikTok going, guys, but
It looks like it's going well. You've started.
I have started.
You've had a few videos getting some good views.
Yeah. We had really good views. We had 100,000 views yesterday.
If I do
in 2 days,
so.
yeah. Couldn't believe it.
Nice.
So yeah, Karl Dickey on Instagram and TikTok. Karl, I think it's Karl Dickey. But yeah.
Nice one.
Thank you
Give
very
him a
much.
follow. Karl, thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much
me.
for being here.
Thank you.
Final
Really
question
enjoyed chatting.
that I ask all guests before we finish.
Yeah.
What is your personal definition of success?
Personal definition of success is being successful to me means being happy, healthy, supporting others and yourself around you, and feeling free and not trapped. That's success for me.
Nice.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.